Hey everyone, so I got a pretty fun line today for you all, and this line has actually gotten me up to the top 20 in the GBL leaderboards recently. I started using this line towards the end of rank 8, and I actually didn't have a single negative set until I hit the 2800. Also, if you haven't seen my previous video, I am now streaming on Twitch. I'll link my Twitch down below, so feel free to give it a follow if you want to see me live stream. So the line that I'm using is Gengar with Lapras and Crustle. I'll talk a little bit more about why I chose this moveset throughout this video. I will say that in Ultra League Premier, there's pretty much no bad leads for this team except for one specific one, and I'll talk about that. The biggest factor for this team is really what the backline is. So getting into the matches, Abomasnow is something that you'll probably see once in a while. You do have to max it out, but I ran into quite a few of them. So my main reasoning behind this moveset is because Sludge Bomb gives you a lot of coverage against grass, so that's a visual glitch right there. My opponent did shield, but what I do is I often bait with the Shadow Punch, and then I will swap to my Lapras. The thing is, unless my opponent lands Energy Balls, their charge moves pretty much do no damage against Lapras. So I'm going to let the second one go, and that's going to be an Energy Ball. I'm going to go straight for the Skull Bash. So Lapras and Crustle don't have the best Venusaur matchup, so that Sludge Bomb does cover your grass weakness, so that's why I run it, and obviously it does well against Abomasnow as well. And Sludge Bomb is also fairly decent against a lot of just neutral matchups, such as some of the Flyers, Snorlax, and Obstagoon even. Obviously, Focus Blasts are better against those Pokemon, but it's a little more energy intensive, and then you end up losing coverage against grass if you run Focus Blast. So I personally like Sludge Bomb a lot. This line is super weak to waters in the back, primarily Empoleon and Swampert, but Crustle with Smackdown just tears Charizard apart and most Flyers, to be honest. But yeah, and so I see a lot of Flyers in the back, and so this is where Crustle really comes in handy. Again, another Abomasnow matchup against my friend Auburn. He's a great battler and actually a local mine as well. And again, I'm going to go with the Shadow Punch. And that was another visual glitch, but it's shielded. Sometimes they actually don't shield the Shadow Punch, which isn't ideal. So I would say that it's not a bad idea to go straight Sludge Bomb as well. The big thing is you want to make sure you're charging up to the Sludge Bomb. If you're just baiting with Shadow Punch and there's no way it can't be anything else, then they're never going to shield, right? Okay, so Lapras as a safe swap tends to work pretty well because you could often force shields from your opponents quite often. That was actually a misplay by me, so I had a Surf ready and I thought I could like get an extra Ice Shard in, but unfortunately I ended up getting fainted out. So I'm gonna have to pay the price right here, and I'm gonna have to come in with my Crustle instead of taking out the Toxicroak with Gengar right there. So yeah, that would have definitely been a better spot for me to be in had I been able to take it out, but Charizard in the back, no problem. Take it out with a Rock Slide, and then now you have energy for the Exorcer. The reason why Crustle is so good and such an underrated pick is, although it's weak to water, it takes neutral damage from a lot of things instead of super effective damage. So it takes neutral from fighting because of the bug typing, it takes neutral from grass because of the bug typing, it takes it takes neutral from fire because of the rock typing, even though it's bug type. So as you can see here, I do stay against Venusaur and they're going to swap out, and this is going to be a Blast Burn. Crustle survives it, no problem. And the thing is, I never shielded because now they have very little to farm off of me. I have energy to throw a charge move. I actually thought the Venusaur was coming back in, so that's why I threw the Exorcer instead. Obviously, Rock Slide would be a little better here, but no worries. I still have my Lapras, and Lapras is super bulky, and it should be able to take out this Clefable, even if I don't land a Skull Bash. I assume my opponent is probably going to try to sack swap at some point in time here, but I still have Gengar. Gengar also does solid against Charmers, resisting those charms. I'm kind of expecting a potential sack swap here. Yep, and here it comes. No big deal. I'll swap to Gengar, farm up some energy, and then, because if I aren't going to do anything, and then just drop a Shadow Punch. And seal the deal right there. Honestly, Charmers don't do well against this team at all. Togekiss loses to all three. And that's a pretty common Charmer right here. Going against one of my friends, Ron 2020, also a very great battler, often on top of the leaderboards. Okay, so he is going to Toxicroak. Toxicroak is a little bit tougher as a fighter to deal with because those Mud Bombs will do a ton of damage against Gengar. I think it nearly one-shots, or it does one-shot. Honestly, I haven't really stuck around to find out. You can probably sim that on PvPoke. But so Lapras comes in right here. I'm going to probably just tank this Surf because, like I said, Lapras does pretty solid against fighters, just landing the Surf, and Toxicroak doesn't have any super effective charge moves. In all likelihood, that will be good against Lapras, unless they're running Dynamic Punch and Mud Bomb, but it seems unlikely. Alright, so land the X's right there. Usually you want to go Rock Slide, but because the opponent was so low already, it's not a big deal. And then we're going to go straight X's right here. And I'm going to probably come in with Gengar to catch the charge move. Let it go, and then have Lapras. Gengar pairs really well with both Lapras and Crustle. I think Gengar with Lapras has really good coverage for each other in general. So that pairing, if you could keep with switch advantage in the end, is great, but having Gengar with Crustle as coverage is also really solid. It's just not as solid as Lapras, I think. But Crustle in general is kind of a pretty bulky Pokemon that could tank a lot of moves. Same thing with Lapras, so you end up being able to save your shields for Crustle, or even for both Lapras and Crustle too, if your Gengar doesn't need it. Okay, so Machamp leads much more favorable because you don't really have to worry about like a move like Mud Bomb. You have to worry about Rock Slide. From a normal Machamp, you could tank that pretty comfortably. From Shadow Machamp, it's a little different story, but my opponent is going to swap out. And then right here, they are going to shield. So what I notice is a lot of Laprases tend to shield in this scenario, so I just go straight for the bait, especially when they lose a lead that hard. So at this point, might as well just smack down all the way, and we end up simultaneously KOing. So this actually works out pretty well in my favor. And then it turns out it's a Charizard in the back, and they're going to concede the match right there. Arcadia. So I've played this trainer actually quite a few times. Because I'm pretty close to the top of the leaderboard, I play a lot of the same top players pretty much every night. And so this person actually has seen my line. So this is kind of test of how well this line stands against competition when they know what the strategy is already. So right here, you could go either Skull Bash or Surf. It's kind of hard to gauge because some opponents shield and some don't, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, if you could get the shield bait with Surf, great. Or if you could land the Skull Bash, also really great. But I think in that specific scenario, I went with Surf. It kind of varies, to be honest, on the day. It's the same thing with the Shadow Punch or Sludge Bomb against Abomasnow. It kind of varies. So, like I said, you can survive one Rock Slide, so no problem right there. And then Alolan Muck. So, I mentioned that this team pretty much has solid matchups against everything in the lead, except for one Pokemon, and that specific Pokemon is Alolan Muck. However, I've yet to see a single Alolan Muck in the lead. Almost a lot of people like to keep him in the back or safe swap it, etc. And so that's actually a pretty good scenario for Gengar in the lead, because Gengar in the lead does actually fairly solid against Obstagoon because you're resisting counters. It doesn't win it, but you have some play. Snorlax as well, because most are running Body Slam with Superpower, you resist all the charge moves, so they can only really rely on fast move damage. So it's kind of the inverse of Obstagoon in some ways, but you have some play against it. And then yeah, so I was able to get the 2 Shadow Punches right there and take them out. But yeah, Alolan Muck is really the one thing that really hard walls Gengar and doesn't have to worry about shielding, but especially because I'm not running Focus Blast. But I've yet to see one in the lead. Alright, this one's actually kind of tough. So Kingdra, honestly, I probably should have shielded that, especially if they shield right here. A lot of Kingdra users tend to shield Skull Bash, and now they have a bunch of energy, which is not great. So let's just kind of see how they play this out. The only reason why I felt semi-comfortable about this still was because I have Crustle on the back, and that's doing neutral damage to Blaziken. So I think my opponent might have did a slight misplay here, not realizing that I had enough energy for 2 Shadow Punches, or maybe thought I was just going straight for Shadow Ball. I'm going to let this charge move go at this point because I would rather leave with the shield advantage. I'm going to shield this Blaziken. It's neutral, but Blaziken is very attack heavy, so definitely want to shield it and then get a few more smackdowns in. So again, I'm taking only neutral from these counters, so it's actually not nearly as bad. And then a Togekiss, 1 Rock Slide, should come close to doing it. Yep, and then you can smack down the Kingdra. Yeah, honestly, I'm only showing you some of the clips. Obviously, I played many battles with this, probably easily over 100 battles with this team, and I'm showing you the exciting ones. There's a lot of matches that end very quickly because they're just safe swapping Charizard and you just get smacked down and then finishing. So you'll probably see a lot more easier matchups across the board. All right, Gallade is actually kind of tough against the team because it does fairly well against a lot of it, and they actually let that one go, which makes sense because they could farm up with Escavalier right here. But the thing with Gallade is it does pretty well against Gengar as long as it shields, and pretty much every Gallade shields against Gengar. And then I'm just gonna let this one go because again, these smackdowns are neutral to Escavalier, and I'm only taking neutral from counters, and also only neutral from ground because of the bug typing too. Usually Rock would take super effective. So again, the typing on Crustle is just super clutch. I'm gonna go for a bait right here, and they're probably gonna shield, and then we go straight for the rock slide. Had they not gone for the bait, I might have lost that one, but so it was a little bit closer. But yeah, so speaking of Gallade, so we're going through kind of the fighters or pseudo fighters at the moment. Here's how you play Gallade. It's very important here. You go straight for Shadow Punch, swap out right away. So this way the confusion that gets procced right when you're throwing the charge move does not end up affecting Gengar. And it gets hit onto Lapras, and then if you swap quick enough and they throw exactly when you swap, you actually end up catching a Leaf Blade too. So even better, because most will go for Leaf Blade over, well yeah, there's no reason to go close combat against Gengar. So if they were planning on throwing the Leaf Blade anyway, it's even better. So I do shield the first Skull Bash, and the main reason behind this is because I don't plan on taking out this Lapras, but I do want to put it into farm range for my Gengar. And so farm range with some Shadow Claws would be nice. And then so I'm going to go straight for the Surf right here, and let's see if I take it out. I don't take it out, but that's fine. I'm going to let this go and then get a few Shadow Claws off on this Lapras, which will be good because I do need this because that can come in handy later against Gallade. And I'm going to swap right out. I'm going to take neutral from all these moves, but Gallade is so attack heavy, I kind of just want to shield it in case there's something in the back that just can't do nearly as much damage. It's a Gliscor, which is kind of interesting. The big thing is if they have Earthquake here, it's bad, but they might be running Night Slash and Aerial Ace instead. So it looks like they are running Night Slash and Aerial Ace, and that actually ends up working out pretty well for me. I'm going to throw the X-Scissor, does neutral because of the Psychic typing, and then we go Shadow Claw down before they get the Confusion through. And then this is actually a rank 8 player that I met pretty high up in my rank 9 elo, so they must be killing it in rank 8. Their placement's probably going to be pretty high when they finally hit rank 9. Alright, so again, swap straight to it. This is probably going to be a Leaf Blade again. Shadow obviously hurts even more, but at this point, they already burned a shield, so I don't mind throwing a Surf right here and either taking them out or burning both of their shields. So they do opt to get both shields burnt, and then they throw in their Charizard, which actually is a smart move by them had they known my backline. I don't think I played this player before, so it just ended up working out pretty well. But I'm going to bring in my Gengar and just draw the energy, and now I'm going to come in with my Crustle, because now I know it can't be a Blast Burn, so I'll tank this very easily. And then I'd rather have Crustle against Gallade because you're not taking super effective from the confusions, and I could just smack down and then just go for a next charge move. So it ends up being a Shadow Snorlax. Luckily it's Shadow because it's going to not tank these rock slides too well. And then Snorlax, they have to pretty much go for super power to do anything. Body Slam is resisted because of that rock typing. I probably could have thrown the X-Scissor sooner actually. I was kind of contemplating rock slide right there, but it ends up working out. Alright, so Obstagoon. This seems like a terrible lead matchup, but it's actually not so bad. So there's a few ways you could play this. This was early. This match was specifically early on, I think. So this is where I used to just swap straight to Lapras and draw out any other harder counters. Because you really want Crustle against Obstagoon if possible, because you're doing neutral with smackdowns and super effective with X-Scissor. But there's some other ways to play Obstagoon, so I'll showcase that actually in my next matchup with Obstagoon. But it's not too bad. I am able to force some shields from Gallade, actually quite a bit of shields. And so let's see if I actually flip this matchup or not. So yeah, they don't go for it, and that's fine. I'm gonna come in with Gengar. So none of these charge moves will do anything unless they're running Synchronoise for some reason. And so I just need to Shadow Claw down, and they were in Shadow Claw range, so that's why I felt comfortable coming in with Gengar. Usually that's a bad matchup. All right. So my opponent's probably thinking, okay, it's going to be probably a Focus Blast that they're going to swap out before they get hit by it. Fortunately for them, I'm not running Focus Blast, but this puts me in a good matchup because Lapras does do pretty well against Gengar, especially when they're not running Focus Blast. And so instead right here, I'm just going to tank the Night Slash. And that's a good call by them. So some players might not have realized, but Cross Chop does way worse against Crustle than Night Slash does, because both are neutral, and Night Slash has stab and it's a better move than Cross Chop. And then, but you know, 2 back-to-back Sludge Bombs will still do it. Because you are resisting those counters, they really need to land Charge Moves to do anything. Alright, so here's the alternative way to play, and kind of how I've been playing it more recently. What I do is I charge up to a Focus Blast. I probably didn't need to shield that in case they get a boost, but I think I want to preserve my Gengar alive. So yeah, if I was going to take the next one anyway, I should have shielded the second one instead of the first one. So luckily I got the shield. So the thing is, you need to charge up your Gengar to make it look like it's going to be a Focus Blast, because otherwise they're not going to shield. And then so right here, I'm in a pretty good spot. I'm going to go straight for Skull Bash at this point. Even though Obstagoon has a solid matchup against Lapras, if they're running Cross Chop, they can't get any boost from here. And if they're not, then I'll still do pretty well. So I'm just going to throw straight Surfs. This way I have Crustle lined up against Obstagoon later, so that's pretty good. However, my opponent is actually farming quite a bit of energy, and even though Crustle is pretty bulky, you don't want to take too much. So I end up doing simultaneous swap, which actually doesn't pay out too well, because had I swapped Crustle instead there, I would have easily won this match. So now it's going to be kind of an uphill battle, because I know I'm going to have to eat a Blast Burn, and we saw how much damage I did before. Luckily, I don't take any, too much Fire Spins from that, so I have a little bit of health left. Let's see if I can tank this. And yep, Crustle is quite bulky and still takes out Obstagoon right there. So yeah, Obstagoon, not really a huge deal. Seems really daunting, but I've actually beaten quite a bit of Obstagoons. Again, this line really depends on what the back line is more than the lead Pokemon. So even though I have the lead guide right here and the different cat emotes to showcase how scary it is, honestly, I'm not really scared to face any lead besides Alolan Muck. It's probably the worst. But no one leads Alolan Muck, at least not currently. Surprisingly, my opponent actually doesn't shield that. So I'm just going to go straight for another one, see if they shield. They still don't shield. Kind of interesting here. So I'm just going to let this go as well. Yeah, had I just gone Rock Slide, I think I would have actually flipped that matchup. So here's the thing with Snorlax. You don't have to worry about any of those charge moves, and for some reason, they actually come in with Dragonite against Gengar. I would have thought they would come in with Snorlax actually, but that actually ends up working out really well for them, because, okay, so I'm going to shield that because I don't need to really worry about Dragonite's charge moves as much. Works out really well for them because they have a much better matchup with Snorlax against Lapras than the other way around. But at this point, I have a little bit too much energy, and Lapras Ice Charge just do tons of damage, especially against Shadow Dragonite. So this should be an easy wrap up. So same thing, Snorlax. Don't be scared if you face it. There's a lot of plays out of it. But yeah, it just really depends. If they have like waters in the back, then you're kind of in a bad spot. Specifically like Empoleon. Alright, so Empoleon lead. Speaking of Empoleon, almost every Empoleon I know will shield their Empoleon. So charge up to what looks like a Shadow Ball first, then just throw Shadow Punch as much as you can. So I'm going to throw right here, and pretty much the strategy after this is just farm hard with Lapras. Commit to the farm down. You're ready at a lead disadvantage, and you don't have switch advantage. Okay, so I actually didn't really commit right here. I actually threw this. I think this is one of my earlier matches, so I didn't really realize the importance of just farming down with Ice Shard. So I just undercharge instead, and so I get a little extra farm. But what I should have done is just straight Ice Shard down instead. And they actually come in with a Gengar. Oh wait, no, that was odd. They came in with Gengar and then swapped to Clefable, which I'm not really entirely sure why. But this is fine. I'm just going to just straight smack down the Clefable right here. The Gengar doesn't have too much energy, so I feel semi-comfortable. And then I'm going to go straight double Rock Slide. They probably would shield this anyway, but it's not really worth baiting because they do resist the X Scissors. And then this Rock Slide should do it. Yeah, so Gengar on the back. Very glassy, so you can usually handle it pretty well with the back two lines, back two mons. Alright, Empoleon again. So Empoleon is not something you want to match up with anything in the back line, specifically Crustle. Against Lapras, it's going to beat it, but it's not terrible of a matchup. But you can't swap to Lapras because then you lose switch advantage and they're going to just demolish you with Empoleon down the road. So again, stay in. You get a shield. Just keep throwing the Shadow Punches. Unfortunately, I actually had to shield that one. Sometimes they just try to commit to a farm down waterfall, but I think the smarter play for the opponent is actually to throw the Hydro Cannon. So now we're on even shields, but I'm going to just rack up a bunch of energy right here. So unless they really want to lose switch advantage, it's not really in their best interest. So even though I'm down half a Pokemon essentially at this point, and they're coming with a hard counter from Machamp, all this extra energy is going to come and really pay off, hopefully. Lapras is so bulky here too. It could get off 3 surfs before getting countered down. So this is going to set me up really well with Crustle. I'm just going to try Smackdown at this point, and I'm going to let this charge move go. It could have actually been a Rock Slide, which would have been disastrous, but fortunately it actually wasn't, and I don't know if my opponent just didn't have enough energy there, or they didn't realize. Again, a lot of people don't realize that. Oh yeah, simultaneous KO, but my Lapras still had a little health, so I ended up winning that one. But yeah, some people just might not realize the Crustle typing as much, just because it's such a unique typing. Alright, Swampert. Terrible lead. But there's still play, like I said. Unless it's a little muck, you're not really worried about any leads. So, same thing. Pretend like you're throwing a Shadow Ball, and then go double Shadow Punch. And then now you have Lapras, which is a solid counter to Swampert. Most will throw Earthquake or Sludge Wave right here, so it's kind of up to you if you want to shield or not. You are coming at a disadvantage, so maybe it's not the best case scenario to shield and just save your shields or Crustle. So I think that's what I'm going to do right here. Sometimes I do shield, but it kind of varies. I think not shielding is still the better play overall, and just hope that they don't have another Crustle counter in the back. Usually they don't. I mean, it's unlikely they have an Empoleon on the back. Maybe a Fighter is not great, or a Venusaur, but Crustle has some play against those, especially with shield advantage. So, was able to draw a shield right here, and I had a Surf saved up, so I quickly swapped before they could do anything else. And then here comes the Charizard. This is terrible for Charizard. Both Lapras and Crustle do very well against it, so I'm just going to tank this charge move. It's probably going to be a Dragon Claw, which is fine. And then I actually get to, oh, I overtap right there. That's fine. Crustle can just clean up with one Smackdown. Yeah, so Swampert in the lead, you definitely have to say, and you can't really think about switching right here, because you swap out to Lapras, there goes your only counter. Alright, in this scenario, I got a little impatient actually, and I just threw, but my rationale here was because they're Shadow, I can't tank a Hydro Cannon. So I guess it ended up working out because they still end up shielding. But maybe it was worth it for me to shield right there. And again, I'm worried about the Shadow, so the Earthquake would hurt a little bit more. Usually I don't shield there. But I was able to take out the Swampert, so that's nice. And then here comes the Venusaur. This is actually going to do quite a bit of damage, but I'd rather save my shield for Crustle, because it's not really a winning matchup without Ice Beam. Alright, so they actually shield, and here comes Charizard, so it's actually pretty solid. And okay, I guess I do shield the Blast Burn here. Blast Burn and Frenzy Plant do kind of similar amounts of damage. Frenzy Plant might do a little bit more, but either way, I wasn't going to survive. Like, I didn't want to get farmed down with Vine Whips from the Venusaur. And then we actually simultaneously KO. So really great games to my opponent right there. I think my misplay was shielding that Sludge Wave, because the Venusaur was going to come in and take me out anyway. So it might have been better to save that shield, but you know, can't always make the perfect plays. But really well played by my opponent. All right, so going into a Gyarados lead, I usually swap Crustle right here. Main reason is because you don't really want to take any Aqua Tails, because those are super effective, versus Lapras resist the Aqua Tails, and it's so bulky, it does pretty well even if you're throwing Crunches or Outrage at it. And then yeah, usually if you whittle down shields early on, you can land a Skull Bash on it. Alright, so my opponent actually comes in here with a Snorlax. So here's the thing, not too worried. I'm just going to burn your shields with my Gengar. Now you're going to throw your energy, because you have to. And then I'm going to come in with my Lapras. So yeah, so even without Focus Blast, Gengar still has a solid play against Snorlax. It actually did like, what, almost half of the Shadow Snorlax's health, and it does about half of Obstagoon's health too. So again, it's not as good as Focus Blast, but shields up, and for additional grass coverage, I prefer it. Alright, was able to shield bait my opponent right here, and now I can go straight for the Skull Bash. That'll take out the Gyarados, and the Snorlax is unfortunately a little too low on health to survive this Surf and get off a Superpower. Gyarados lead is definitely a little bit tougher, because it's only taking neutral from Ice Shard from Lapras in the end, but it's still manageable. All right, again, bad lead, get hard countered, But like I said, Lapras is very bulky. My opponent here actually does a really smart play. That was actually a huge misplay by me. I had 2 Surfs ready and a Skull Bash, so I could have thrown either, but I didn't throw any, and the main reason is because they went straight Rock Slide. I kind of had to call their bait right there, and I just commit to a very hard farm down, and now I'm going to throw the Sludge Bomb, and hopefully draw a shield. Probably will, so maybe a Shadow Punch might have been fine there. I'm going to come in with my Crustle. But here's the thing, most opponents actually go Cross Chop, and it allows you to actually get off both Surfs. Because my opponent actually went straight Rock Slide, it worked out really well for them because it actually takes out my Lapras before I could really, well, I kind of panicked and couldn't even get off a single charge move. So really well played by my opponent right there. Most people don't actually do that. All right, and they catch a X-Scissor, which is kind of nice. And then here I'm going to throw the X-Scissor because they're low enough. And then I'm going to throw in my Gengar. I'm going to just let this go at this point. And then I know my Gengar still has, oh no, I guess I still preserve it. I don't know why I shielded that. Maybe I was just worried in case like something weird happened where I couldn't get the charge move off. You know how sometimes that happens, even though you have charge move, you just get hit by the fast move. So, but yeah, ended up working out despite my misplay right there. So even with a misplay and a hard counter swap, you can still win. It's really because a lot of people have flyers in the back or things that are weak to Crustle, to be honest. It's unlikely people will bring counters for both Lapras and Crustle. Because who sees Crustle in the meta, to be honest? Not at the moment, at least. I don't know, who knows, maybe after this video. All right, so Ampharos, pretty solid. What I do is try to burn both shields. So I'll pretend to bait what looks like a Shadow Ball or something hard hitting. And then at this point, again, here comes the harder counter. I think I just let, oh no, I do, oh yeah, I go straight for Skull Bash because this is going to hurt quite a bit. And then I could come in with Crustle, yep. And then this will seal the deal right here. I should go for X-Scissor right here because I don't really want to get hit by a Hurricane or anything. And it'll help me finish off the Dragonite. And then this is probably Cross Chop, which I will survive. Yep, and then Smackdown. So yeah, Ampharos, pretty much almost all Ampharos shield this matchup. So just let Gengar go if that's the case. That's fine. You don't really want Ampharos matched up against Lapras, and Crustle's okay, but you can't swap to Crustle because then there's your only counter. So again, bait what looks like a Shadow Ball, and then go for a Sludge Bomb. Oh, it looks like I had the double shield here. That was actually really well timed by opponent. So they actually bring in a Gallade right here, which is going to force their last shield, which is not too bad. And then now I have my Lapras. This is going to be a Leaf Blade, I believe. Oh no, it's going to be close combat. All right. But again, Lapras is very bulky. Maybe the Shadow variant would have taken it out, but that one, fortunately, was not enough. I'm going to come in probably with Gengar. Oh no, I come with Crustle right here. Yeah, that's fine. A slight energy lead on Crustle is not terrible. I think I might have been worried about the confusion getting through, but Gengar should have been able to handle that. All right. Venusaur is actually a solid check to Crustle, but with shields down, it's not terrible because the Rock Slides also hurt the Venusaur quite a bit. This actually works out perfectly for me because now I can actually farm down this Ampharos and land an X-Scissor before the Venusaur can get to another move. Yeah, so ends up working out pretty well. Okay, Magnezone lead. So Magnezone is actually kind of tough. You have a great matchup with Gengar. The main reason why Magnezone is tough is because usually the back line checks this line really well. Yeah, so a little muck, not great. And I had to spend a shield. Here's the thing. This line actually loses pretty hard to Jonkiss's line of Magnezone, Gallade, and Venusaur. I actually haven't run into this. I don't think I've run into that line at all with this line yet. So, but I can't really see a way you could win that one. Fortunately, it seems like that line has, I don't know, it hasn't been around this season for some reason, one way or another. So at the moment, it's a weakness that I'm perfectly comfortable with. But yeah, it is definitely a weakness for this team. So Gengar is pretty solid though here against Magnezone because you're doing neutral with the Shadow Punches, and you just charge up energy so quickly here. So I'm just going to keep throwing these Shadow Punches, and then I think I let this go expecting a Mirror Shot. Yep, it is a Mirror Shot. Very smart play by my opponent to actually check me real quick with the Confusion and waste all my energy saved up. I didn't have too much energy, but I probably could have swapped out sooner and got into a Shadow Punch later. But yeah, these confusions just hurt quite a bit. Even though Crustle's kind of on the bulkier side, it just still ends up hurting quite a bit. Oh man, and it's still not enough to take it out with the X-Scissor. Maybe if it was a Shadow, it would have been fine, but I might have lost the confusion if it was Shadow anyway. And then that's GG's right there. So maybe if I had the Gengar, I could have gone to a Shadow Punch, but really well played by my opponent right there. I have some footage where I beat Magnezone leads, but I don't know. This video is already long, so I haven't included it. But long story short, Magnezone leads, just stay in and throw Shadow Punches. If you could time it after they throw a Wild Charge, even better. But if they have a Gallade in the back, usually it's GG's. Alright, so right here, again, the neutral damage from Smackdowns and Rock Slide on Escavalier is really solid. So what I actually do against Dragonites is I actually swap to Crustle. Because Lapras has a much better matchup, Crustle's much better to safe swap right there. You still draw out most of the fighters, maybe some of the waters too, stuff like that. Alright, so even though Lapras is not bad in the mirror, what I'd rather do here is burn some shields, chip away at this Lapras with my Gengar, and then come with my Lapras with 2 shields. They're probably going to throw Surfs right here, but I'm not too worried. Close to 1 Skull Bash away from taking out this Lapras, and then from there, I'll have a boosted Lapras against the Dragonite. Even with Draco Meteor, they won't be able to take me out. Honestly, you can't take out a Lapras with Draco Meteor even when you're not boosted, so I know I'm in a very good spot. And yeah, my opponent's going to concede the match right there. Yeah, Dragonite leads are not too bad because you have 2 options in the back. Even Gengar's not too bad against it, so I like to swap out instantly. I did show this line with my patrons earlier, and some of them actually like to stay in with Gengar and like bait with Shadow Punches a little bit, draw some shields, and then swap, which is also another play. And then my buddy CCO was using this team on stream earlier, and he would actually catch the Dragon Claw on his Crustle after farming with Gengar. That's another play too, but personally I just like to go straight for Crustle. No time to waste. Alright. Okay, so this is pretty solid because I bring out the Magnezone, and so now I see that matchup. I'm going to shield this probably Wild Charge. They haven't seen my Lapras yet, so they probably think they're in a decent spot, but I'm just going to straight Ice Shard down, and now I'm in a very good position because these Surfs are going to do quite a bit. And yeah, you don't have to shield anything. A Mirror Shot's not enough to take out the Lapras anyway, so they still have to throw a Wild Charge or try to farm me down afterward, but they're going to take a lot of Surfs and Ice Shard damage in the process. My opponent actually swapped to Tangrowth right there, which doesn't seem like the best idea against a Bug-type Crustle, but I can see the understanding, the rationale behind it, because Tangrowth has a terrible matchup against Gengar, so they want to clear that matchup early, and Tangrowth still has that super effective Rock Slide. Alright. 24-16 Rod, definitely a top tier player that I see in battles quite often and on the leaderboards. I don't even know how many times I battled this player. I think he's a Japanese player too. I don't know. Could be mistaken, but I believe I've seen them on Twitter before. Anyway, so this is an example of the back line just destroying this line. Empoleon can't do much. So I had the shield here. Obviously Lapras is solid, but I don't really want Gengar against Dragonite, so I'm going to double shield this and just hope there's something in the back that I can use this Gengar with energy against. So this is probably going to draw a shield, but I'm still at a switch disadvantage. And then here comes Lapras. Lapras without shields against the Lapras with shields. That is a GG's for the Lapras with shields. I do get to the Skull Bash first, so that's at least a little nice, but they are going to shield, and it's not going to matter because they're going to get an extra Skull Bash off of me, and then that's going to be GG's. My only play right here is potentially sacking my Gengar somehow, and I don't know, it's a very tough battle because even the Dragonite can take out the Lapras at this range soon. So right here, I'm just trying to time a sack after this Skull Bash. I know that there are a few Ice Shards behind me on their Skull Bash, so I'm just getting ready, and I go for a sack. Unfortunately, I think they might have been going for a Surf anyway, so it didn't end up working out, and can't even get the Shadow Punch off, and that's going to be GG's. So again, it's not really the lead that you really need to worry about, it's the back line. And so that in that example, that kind of proved it. Empoleon on the back, very detrimental to the team. Same thing with like a Swampert if they don't pull it out against the Lapras. Very detrimental to the team. So those are things to consider, right? Obviously, I showed some early examples where I'm beating Dragonite leads, no problem. Okay, yeah. So what line is this? It's the infamous CCO tap line that my buddy CCO came up with a few seasons ago, actually in Open Ultra League. I'm surprised I see it in Premier, just because Empoleon technically beats the entire team. Obviously Empoleon can only do so much, but I'm going to farm down a ton of energy right here, and here comes Crustle, going to shield. I'm kind of at this point expecting the Togekiss, so yep, here comes the Togekiss. I'm not even going to bait, I'm going to go straight Rock Slide, no big deal. If they throw a Flamethrower on me, it's all good. I still have Gengar with a ton of energy. I could have actually even thrown Exos right there, but it's all good. Just going to Shadow Claw down. I couldn't even throw a move, and that would be fine. But I have 2 Sludge Bombs ready. That's going to KO the Charizard for sure. And yep, GG's. Yeah, honestly, Togekiss loses against this entire line, so always good to see. All right. Charizard lead. You have 2 solid Charizard counters in the back, so that's why I swap instantly to Lapras every time. Obviously, Crustle has a better matchup. I used to actually throw Skull Bash here and Force Shield, but what I realized is almost every Venusaur shields, so it's better to throw double Surfs. 1, the Surf will chip away at it, that doesn't get shielded, whereas Skull Bash, the entire Charizard gets shielded. 2, if you have a defensive buff after Skull Bash, they get a few extra Vine Whips of farm off of you, which is not great. Because of that, actually, they could usually get to 2 Frenzy Plants against Gengar, but because I didn't have the buff, they only got to 1. And from there, I don't need a shield. I know I can tank 1 Frenzy Plant, no problem. I'm going to save my shields for this Crustle. My opponent right here actually didn't even attempt to bait, so I chose to just tank the first Body Slam. At this point, I need a shield just because I don't really want to get hit by a second one. I am going to throw the Exos as a bait right here because I'm anticipating them shielding because they really want to get rid of this Crustle. They don't want their Charizard matched up against it at all. I was able to get the shield bait, and then now this is GG's. I'm going to shield this. It's going to be Dragon Claw. No problem though. I'm going to just chip away with this, or chunk away with the Smackdowns, and finish them off. Yeah, so Charizard leads are usually okay unless they have like direct counters for your backline. Which sometimes can happen because it is a Charizard lead, so they probably are anticipating some counters. But again, most people don't really expect a Crustle, so that's usually what people kind of don't have solid coverage for. Alright, Tangrowth right here. They are able to get the Charge Move before I get to my Skull Bash. I'm just going to let it go. It's not really worth it because they could farm a ton of energy off of me. I have that Sludge Bomb for a reason. And then they're coming with Charizard, and they're coming straight with Crustle right here. Was actually hopefully able to catch a Dragon Claw. And yeah, works out. And then this is a bad sign. If you see someone stay in Charizard against your Crustle, well, actually, that's kind of weird. I don't know why I didn't swap to Swampert, actually, now I think about it. All right, anyway, Swampert backline, terrible for this team. Really bad. So my greatest hope right here is luckily it is Shadow. And so it's going to take much more damage from these Shadow Claws and Shadow Punches. I know I have some energy lead on my Gengar, so this is kind of a race to the clock of who can get to the charge moves first. Honestly, at this point, my opponent probably should just mud shot me down because there's no way they're getting to 3 Hydro Cannons, so that might have been a slight misplay by them. Had they just done that, I would have gotten 2 less Shadow Claws in there, and yeah, they might have won that one. Right, so Swampert in the backline, very tough. Still beatable in some ways, but again, it's a backline that you really need to worry about. Drifblim, ooh, you love to see it. Just like Togekiss, this entire line beats Drifblim, so pick your poison on what you want to do. I personally actually like to swap out usually if they don't swap out because I'd rather save Gengar for like a fighter like Machamp right here, because Lapras can handle Drifblim pretty well, and even if they throw Shadow Ball, it's no big deal. Alright, I'm going to just throw the Shadow Punch. They actually shield. Kind of interesting. I probably could let this go, but I choose to shield anyway, just because I'm already in a pretty solid lead, and I don't really want to give it up by just accidentally letting a Rock Slide through. And then I'm going to bring in my Lapras. Hopefully I caught an Icy Wind here. Yep. I'm going to do very low damage, and then my opponent is going to concede right there. Yeah, I see a few Drifblim leads, not too many. There's one trainer that I actually run into that runs Drifblim a lot. Can't remember their specific name, but props to them for not dodging me every time because they know they've played me so many times. They know that my team hard counters them, but I appreciate that they're still sticking through. All right, going against the one and only Guan, very top player in GBL and Sylph before he retired from Sylph or took a break from Sylph. How often do you see a Skarmory lead? Well, for me personally, I've only seen one, so maybe this is not a useful matchup to include, but I figured just in case you see it, what happens, right? Gengar's not terrible against Skarmory, to be honest, but if you have 2 anti-flyers in the back, might as well bring those out. Yeah, this is not great. Kingdra is actually really rough for this line, so especially with Lapras out. So I do swap straight to Crustle to just counter down, and here comes Swampert. And so this is GG's. You know, sometimes you can have some play against Swampert if you have shields with Gengar, but my Gengar is way too low on health at this point, and these X's aren't going to be doing enough. Maybe I had like some like Mega Horn or something that'd be solid, but getting to Mega Horn with Smackdown would take forever. Yeah, X's just is not the best move, and in Ultra League, Swampert is also quite bulky. Yep, and so he's going to take me out here. So, again, it's the back line. It's not really the Skarmory I was really worried about. Even the Kingdra wasn't too bad. It was really the Swampert in the back that is really the killer here. Alright, Gliscor. So, Lapras has a really good matchup because they're taking super effective damage from Surf and double super effective from Ice Shards. So, you always want to swap Crustle. I'm going to just tank this move. Oh, actually, no, I do shield. I guess I was worried about Earthquake. Because if they're baiting me, that's fine. I don't get hit by Earthquake anyway, and I can farm down here. So I have energy on Crustle, which usually is a good sign for most spots. And if it's not, if it's like a fighter, then no big deal because I saw Gengar. So they bring in Lapras. Kind of interesting here. And then I'm going to go for the Exorcer. They don't shield, so hopefully I can get a shield bait right here. And I do. Alright, here's the play right here. I bring in Gengar, I tank one Surf, and then bring in my own Lapras. The thing is, they won't have enough for Skull Bash right here, so that way I don't have to worry about it. And then they actually counter swap their Snorlax, which I guess they didn't have too much play because their Lapras is so low already, but this actually works out great because I don't want that Snorlax match with my Gengar down the road. And I go straight for the Skull Bash, why not? And I land it, so that works out really well. Superpower is fine. I kind of anticipated that even if it's superpower, I know I will survive it, so they're forced to shield. They actually don't shield. Yeah, I think they just concede at this point because there's not too much play here, unfortunately for them. Oh, they actually stay in. Alright, so I'm just going with Gengar and finish off the Lapras. No big deal. They don't have any defense buff. They actually quite a bit of energy, so I can see why they might have saved the shield for Lapras. But yeah, just unfortunately Lapras is a little too low on health, and you can finish it off with Shadow Punch. Togekiss. Like I said, Togekiss, a great lead to see. You pretty much beat it with everything. If they're like heavy shielding their Togekiss right here, they could probably take out your Gengar, especially if they're in like Air Slash variant. But this opponent actually just lets it go through. Oh, this is a very interesting match. I included this because I thought it was pretty interesting. You don't really see a Alolan Golem often, so yeah, kind of interesting right here. I let them take me out because I'd rather. Yeah, I don't know right here. I mean, this Alolan Golem technically beats my entire backline. So I need a shield. But luckily I was able to shield the wild charges. I am going to drop one Surf, have another Surf ready for the Golem down the road. And then here I come in Crustle. Crustle can tank these, so no big deal. Actually, Mega Horn does a lot more damage than Drill Run, so that actually worked out really well for my opponent. I'm going to just undertap that, underfarm a little bit. I need energy on my Lapras. I don't want the Golem to farm me. So I should purposely lose that one just so I have energy on this Lapras. Yeah, because they still have a shield. So I need to drop two Surfs. Had I not done that, I would have lost. But yeah, big ups to my opponent right here for running Alolan Golem. Definitely a very spicy pick. Alright, Gengar lead. So I will say this. I didn't run into any mirrors at the moment of making this video, so I don't have any mirrors to showcase. The only people that knew about this line were my patrons, and I didn't end up matching any of them that were using it. But so this is the closest thing you can get. So how do you play a Gengar lead? My opponent right here was at that point was just committed to Shadow Clawing me down and shielding, so I'm just gonna let that go. And here comes Snorlax, which this looks like a straight body slam, so not too worried, not going to shield. I'm probably going to go straight Skull Bash for the hard-hitting move. They're already down shield, so I don't really anticipate them shielding again. So yeah, so they don't shield. And at this point, the Snorlax has to throw the energy, so I'm just going to let this Lapras go. And then I'm going to come in Crustle. Then this is probably not a superpower. Yeah, so that's fine. And then I'm going to... Maybe this Snorlax running Return or something? I'm not really sure what's running. Or maybe they just didn't think they'd get to the move. So Exorcer is resisted, but this Gengar is so low that it should be enough. And then I have a Venusaur with, and I'm on a shield advantage right here. So they actually smartly decided to shield the Rock Slide. So I just need Rock Slide here. At this point, I'm realizing that they're probably going to fast move me down. So I just need to hopefully smack down everything. And fortunately, Crustle is beefy enough to smack down Gengar and win that match too. I hope you all liked this video and the lineup, and I hope it works as well for you as it did for me. A big shout out and thank you to all my patrons who have been supporting my content creation. The Meta Breaker tier and above actually get early access to these lines. So if you're curious about my next few lines, feel free to sign up and you'll get some exclusive content. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and share, subscribe for future content, hit that notification bell to get alerted right when I drop a new video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.